of the Health Movement Podcast. I'm Derek, your host. I am a certified personal trainer and a teacher of over 20 years. Also, this is kind of a test live show here. We have our official live show on Wednesday, June 18th at 8 p.m. with guests Chris Bachman, Kate Clark, Joel Diego, Sam Coop, and Kevin Stark. We're going to be raising money for Team 1 Mile, which is a foundation that helps Gold Star families and veterans. So that is going to be a lot of fun that night, but I wanted to get in and make sure I had all the kinks ironed out for this, so that I understood how everything was going and making sure there weren't any huge technical glitches. So if anybody's actually watching this, I appreciate you jumping in. You can leave any comments in the comment section if you're here, and I will see actually how that works. But I didn't tell anybody about this, so I was assuming nobody would be jumping on. That being said, I am going to be jumping on and off, or not jumping on and off. I'm going to be just checking some things. I know there's a slight delay on YouTube and a couple of the other platforms, but I am going to jump into this. Today's episode, I wanted to focus on sleep and its importance. So we're going to dive into that. Now, in this platform for the Health Movement Podcast, we've had a huge focus on what are the four main aspects we felt, and I say we, when Tim and I started this, were the four main aspects of overall health. We have your fitness level, and that's not just going to the gym and lifting weights, but your overall movement, how active you are, how sedentary you are, and just the effect that has on you, and muscle building as well. Muscle is huge. Everybody should be doing some form of resistance training. I don't care how old you are or how decrepit and unathletic you are. It doesn't matter. Do body weight exercises. Start somewhere and build up to more movement. So that's incredibly important to do. So that's the first pillar. Second pillar is your nutrition. Stay away from processed foods as much as possible. It's very difficult to cut it all out, but 80-85% of the time you should be eating whole foods, which we've said over and over. And it's actually not super difficult to do once you get into the rhythm. If it's a huge change, then that would obviously be different. But it's oh wait, I might have a chat here. I don't know how to see that. All right. Okay, no, it just means I have somebody watching. So who's ever watching, I appreciate it. But whole foods are gonna do so much more for you. Even if you look at like a protein bar, which you think is going to be healthy, there's a lot of additives in there, hidden sugars, the highly processed foods in there that get stored as fats, or your body goes through the carbohydrates so quickly that you're going to need more food later on. But that's the second one. The third one is your mindset, and these are in no particular order. You just have to understand your reason for getting healthy. If you have the proper mindset, if you understand the longevity piece of everything, it's going to make life so much easier. And then the final thing, and what we're going to talk about today, is your sleep. And this one seems to get overlooked the most. People don't sleep as much as they should. I won't say all people, but a lot of them don't. Screens are on right up until you fall asleep, so then the sleep isn't great. People drink caffeine quite a bit. If you're drinking it after 12 or 1, it will affect your sleep. You might be able to fall asleep, but it doesn't mean it's out of your system and you're going to have good quality sleep. So today we're going to talk about the importance of sleep, and there are a couple studies done. There were some things that I saw that I just wanted to point out. So the first thing, and I usually don't print out a whole script of what I want to talk about before I have the guests on, because I want it to be an organic conversation, and there's a lot that comes up that I don't even realize we're going to talk about. We have a few bullet points, we can just go from there. Because it's just me, I didn't want to sit here and have too many and everything else that I have to fill. So I have this planned out. So as I'm looking down, you just have to bear with me a little bit. But what I wanted to talk about, first of all, there's some statistics that are good to know. 35%, between 35 and 40% of Americans get less than 7 hours of sleep consistently each night, and 7 hours is the mark. There was somebody, I believe he was on the Andrew Huberman podcast, and I don't remember his name, but he was saying that if you looked statistically at who can manage to get less than that 7 hours of sleep a night and still perform as well as can be expected or up to their potential, if it's to a percentage point, it rounds down to 0%. It's such a minute population that it's almost insignificant, the amount of people that can actually do it. There are a couple people that come to mind, like Kobe Bryant was notorious for not sleeping much and constantly working. But then there's also something to say, if he slept a few more hours, would he have been able to get even more out of his abilities and everything else? So 35%, 35 to 40% of Americans get less than the required 7 hours of sleep. And then certain things happen when you get less than those 7 hours of sleep. If you're up for 24 or 17 hours straight, so that is that 7 hours, if you're going to sleep right then, your reaction time diminishes so much, especially for people who have, athletes or people who have jobs where reaction is important, doctors, nurses, people who work electrical jobs or whatever it happens to be. You have the equivalent reaction time of somebody who's got a blood alcohol level of 0.05 to 0.08. In a lot of states, 0.08 is the legal limit. If you get to 24 hours straight of being awake, your reaction time is now past the legal limit in all states, in terms of reaction time. So it's just something else that people should be thinking about when it comes to just the importance of sleep in reaction time. Cognitively, you don't have the ability to think clearly when you haven't had enough sleep. So that piece is incredibly important just for your day-to-day life and to perform in your job, whatever it happens to be, as a member of a family, as a member of society. I mean, how many people do you think, in terms of road rage or these people who blow up just because they're exhausted and overtired and not thinking straight? I coach youth soccer, and there's this one particular player who is notorious for not getting much sleep, and I'm not going to talk about his nutrition, but he is exhausted when it comes to game time, and he even says, like, my legs aren't working right, I don't have the energy, and it's simply because the sleep isn't where it needs to be. So getting enough sleep, cognitively, it's huge. Reaction time, it's huge. And there are a few other factors I really want to hit here. And the next part is your, in terms of your overall health, body recomposition. If people are struggling with fat loss or gaining muscle, one of the easiest switches you can do is add another hour or two of sleep. There are these two hormones, and I had to look these up to make sure I got them right, but leptin and ghrelin are two different hormones that the body produces, and when you don't have enough sleep, it doesn't produce them properly. Leptin is the hormone that tells you when you're full. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells you when you're hungry. So, as a sick joke, I don't know what you believe in, but whoever created us or whatever happened to get us going, when you don't have enough sleep, the hormone that tells you you're full, we don't get enough of it. And the hormone that tells you you're hungry, we get even more of it. So it's not just we're losing out on that hormone that tells us you're full, you're also getting extra of the hormone ghrelin that tells you tells you that you're hungry. So you're getting incredibly hungry and you're never satiated, and that's strictly because of sleep. So if you're able to push yourself to get enough sleep, 7 hours, again, that's the goal. If it's 6.5, maybe that's what you can get to. It's going to make a huge difference. Just getting that sleep, then you're going to feel satiated longer. You're not going to be snacking late, and you're also not awake as long, so maybe you're not eating that much. There's a study done where they checked people in the Mediterranean, because generally speaking, that's one of the healthiest diets, the Mediterranean diets. It's a lot of whole foods, and the population is, compared to the United States, is much healthier. And they checked when the average person ate, and it was roughly between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So that's 6 hour window. We're not going to get into intermittent fasting or anything like that, but that's generally when they ate. They asked Americans when Americans usually ate. It was between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m., which tells us two things. One, we don't stop eating when we're awake, which has a lot to do with the food that we're eating, highly processed. You don't stay satiated, your body burns through it quickly, and you're just craving more. And also, we're not sleeping enough. That just leaves us a 6 hour sleeping window. So average American is definitely not sleeping enough, and then you're eating more than you should. So getting enough sleep is going to make a huge difference in terms of weight loss, body recomposition. But it also, this is a common misconception. People think you go to the gym to build your muscle, or you exercise to build muscle. That's not it. You exercise to break down the muscle, and then you get all these little micro tears inside all the muscles, and when you sleep, that's when the muscle has time to repair itself. So if you're not allowing yourself those 7 hours to sleep, you're actually losing out on time where you're growing muscle. So if your goal is to grow muscle, sleep more. I mean, you don't want to be sleeping 12 hours a day. Like 7 to 9 hours is a good window for adults. But it's really, really important if you're trying to get healthier, you got to sleep more. There's so many benefits to it. And then if we get into the mental aspect of it, sleep deprived people have a 50% increase in agitated activities, which, like I talked before, that road rage, short temper, things like that. And there are definitely people who have a longer fuse than others just by nature of who they are. But when you're sleep deprived, you obviously don't process things quickly enough or as rationally as you should. And that's when those issues really come into play, where you don't have a chance to respond or react the way that you should. Mental health can also, it can lead to, or lack of sleep leads to a lot of issues with mental health. So as we hear more about the struggles people have with mental health, one of the best ways that we can counter that is if people are actually sleeping more. And that's, I'm not saying that's the cure-all to everything is, oh, if you're depressed, just go to sleep more. A lot of people have trouble going to sleep and falling asleep and staying asleep. Stress is huge. Anxiety is huge. Like, these are factors that contribute to not having a good night's sleep, and you might be putting the effort in really trying to do it, but you're having trouble in other aspects of your life, which makes sleep hard. Everybody has had those nights where you toss and turn because you're worried about something. I'm not telling you to just stop worrying, because everybody knows that never works. When somebody says, oh, just don't worry, you got to stop worrying so much. That is the least helpful advice anybody could ever give. But it's important to try to do certain things and take certain steps to give yourself the best chance at a good night's sleep. And some of the things that can really, really help you are to set an alarm, not to wake up, but set an alarm for when you should turn your screen off, and set an alarm for when it's time for bed. And if you follow that regimen for a few weeks, your body will become more used to that, and it will become easier to fall asleep because you'll be in a rhythm. Getting rid of the phone, the screens, all that stuff is incredibly important. Scrolling in bed is one of the leading causes for insomnia or people not being able to fall asleep. It's really, really a detriment to that. So make sure that the screens are coming off or turning off. Usually people say 90 minutes. If you can do 60 minutes, that's gonna be super helpful as well. Turn the screens off. It's weird when you try to think about 20 years ago. The screens weren't on that late anyway. You'd read a book, you'd play a game, you'd talk to somebody, you'd hop on the phone and have a phone call. which is mind-boggling to a lot of people today that actually happened, where you'd sit on the phone and talk for an hour. Social connections are a good thing for you, so that's another thing maybe we need to get back into a little bit, is actually, call somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, or I don't know, you write a book, do whatever, do something besides getting on your screen. So that's one big thing, is turn the screens off. Number two is try to go to bed at the same time every night. And I know that's impossible, but the goal should be to, if you can set the alarm for 9:30 or 10 o'clock, whenever it works, then get into bed then. And then if you sleep till 5, there's your 7 hours right there. If you're a little bit of a night owl, make sure you have time to sleep later into the morning. So it's something where you have to plan that piece out a little bit. And it's just like anything else. You're not going to go to the gym or start running or start training without a plan in place. A lot of people meal prep because they want to make sure they get certain macros into their body. People journal and maybe go to therapy or do these other things to help with their mindset. Sleep is no different. You want to have a plan for all aspects of your life, which will make things a lot easier in the long run. And some other ways that you can do this is in the morning, within 30 minutes of getting up, you want to get outside and get sunlight on your face. Now, I know some people get up before the sun rises, but as soon as you can get the sunlight on your face, it helps with your body's circadian rhythms, where it knows, okay, it's time to be awake now. So that when the sun goes down or you're getting ready for bed, your body has adjusted and understands, all right, it's time for bed. Another thing that works is to cool your room down. 60 to 67 degrees is the ideal temperature. Some people like it a little colder, a little hotter. Don't sleep in an 80-degree room if you can avoid it. Depending on where you live, in your air conditioning situation, you might not be able to fix that, but if possible, 60, 62 degrees, I guess up to 67, but if you can keep it cool, your body sleeps much, much better. And there are a couple other things here. If you are at night, before you go to bed, if you can avoid the bright lights as well, if you can dim them a little bit and make sure that you're not getting too much light in your eyes, that's going to confuse your circadian rhythms, as we talked about before. So you want to make sure you dim those lights, and have a bedtime routine where all right, it's time to bed, I go brush my teeth, I go to the bathroom, I don't know if you lay your clothes out or you get your lunch ready, but have the same routine every night before bed or close to it. I know it might sound weird to some people, but if you're having trouble sleeping, try it. Try it for a week or two. If it doesn't work, try something else, but you can't just give up and say, I'm a bad sleeper, so that sounds dumb, I don't want to try it. Try it. These things might be helpful to you. And then, like I said before, caffeine's going to kill you. If you're drinking caffeine at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, early evening, you're not sleeping well. There's no way you're going to sleep well. I think the half-life on caffeine, I have to look it up to double check, but I think is 5 hours. So at 5 hours, half the caffeine is still in your bloodstream. So if you stop drinking at noon, by 5 o'clock, half of it's still in your bloodstream. Another 5 hours later, you got 3/4 of it out of your way, or out of your system. If you're drinking coffee at 5 o'clock, by 10 o'clock, you still have half that caffeine in your body. You're not going to have a restful night's sleep. So that's another huge thing that's going to help you out a lot. So just to reiterate, sleep is incredibly important. It will make a huge difference. And I notice for myself, when I went from sleeping like 4 to 5 hours a night to sleeping 7 hours consistently, I lost weight and gained muscle. I was more alert. I was more awake. I was happier. The day was better. I was eating cleaner. There were so many benefits beyond just being awake that I noticed. And I think the biggest thing for me, and a lot of people, like when you're working out, when you're exercising, you're eating right, you get stuck at this level where you're like, all right, I can't get rid of those last couple pounds of body fat that I'm trying to. And the issue might be you're getting up too early. I used to go to the gym, and I still go really early. But there was a gym I was going to, and one of the guys, Corey, was as consistent as anybody I've ever seen. He would be to the gym at 3:45, regardless. But he was also helping his brother-in-law open up his his restaurant again post-COVID. So he was working there, helping him clean up, tile floors, do all this stuff until 10:30, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and he was getting 3 hours of sleep at night. Inflammation was through the roof, aches, pains, like he just felt awful all the time, and it was because he was only getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night consistently. So it's really important to get a consistent 7 hours of sleep, and that does not mean one night you get 2 hours, the next night you get 11 or 12 and think that makes a difference. No, it's got to be as consistent as possible. Same time you go to bed, same time you get up, and obviously that can't happen all the time, but it's really, really important to try that. Try to keep that as consistent as possible. Now, I think there were a couple people that hopped on. I have the numbers I can see popping up and down, so I appreciate people hopping on when you did. I'm trying to figure out how this live chat works, so if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to just try. I have the YouTube window up, and I got to tell you, it's weird looking at yourself talking with a little bit of a delay there. But I'm just going to try and see if I can get the comments working here. So if you want to hop off, that's fine. I'll probably cut the end of this, but I'm going to spend another 30 seconds to a minute just trying to figure out the chat thing and see if I can get that working so that when our live show hits on Wednesday, June 18th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on YouTube, or I think it'll be probably streaming on LinkedIn as well, and possibly Instagram. Feel free to jump on. We're trying to raise money, Team 1 Mile, to help Gold Star families and veterans. So it's a really, really good, charity and a good cause that we're working towards. And we're just going to have a roundtable discussion on all aspects of health and fitness. So it should be a lot of fun. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it so much. And we will see you Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, I'm going to try to do a chat, and obviously it's not working right now, which is a little annoying. I'll see if I can just, all right, so bear with me for one more sec while I try this out, and then I'll cut this. All right, I can see I'm live. Did I post anything? Yeah, I guess I can. Hold on, let me see how it looks. Alright, let's see. Oh, yeah, it pops up. So let me see if I can show on screen. Oh yeah, look at that. It pops up on the screen as well. That's pretty sad that I'm the one commenting on my own thing. But alright, so that's good to know that that aspect actually works on YouTube. Oh yeah, and look at that, it pops right up. So that's kind of cool. Okay, well anyway, glad that works. Thank you all. If you're still listening, I'm not really sure why you are, but I appreciate it. Alright, see you guys all Wednesday.